Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It is time to talk to the expert, one of our favorites in the house. Let's rock and roll, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Surely the Arsenal are not about to sign yet another player in the summer transfer market. That would make it number 8. We love to do a player dossier, and when it's a player who has honed their craft in Bundesliga, is there anyone better than Mr. Kevin Hatchard? Welcome back to Squad Central, Kev.
Great to be back.
So happy you're here. Thank you for making time for us. I know it's an insane time of the year for you. Of course, a lot of us squaddies have seen Piero Hincapié play in Bundesliga in the historic Bayer Leverkusen treble winning season. But do we really know enough about him? Wondered if you could break it down for us. Firstly, talk a little bit about, who he is, where he's come from, how long he's been in Bundesliga.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing about him is that when they first picked him up by Leverkusen, it was based on his performances at international level for Ecuador. And they were so impressed by what they'd seen that they actually skipped a lot of their usual checks and accelerated the move for him because they were concerned that other clubs were going to nip in and get him. So that's what really caught the eye. So they brought him in, and he was raw to start with, and he made a few mistakes and gave away penalties, things like that. Rash challenges, but over time, he's really developed and he's become a very reliable player. He's very aggressive, very physical, and he's learned to channel that. But I think what's become really, really apparent is that he listens and he learns. And if you look at the way that he really adapted under Xabi Alonso, and it took him a while to absolutely nail down a place in Xabi Alonso's team, once he did that, he was able to download all that tactical information. And I think certainly by the end of Xabi Alonso's final season at Leverkusen, he was absolutely one of the first names on the team sheet. And actually in the season where they were unbeaten in the league and won the Bundesliga, he started 16 games and was involved in another 10. And he was injured in the early part of the season. So, yeah, somebody who's really developed, really matured, still very young, but has packed a lot into his career already.
Kev, how long has he been in? How long has he been in Bundesliga? Is it 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah. So it's a few seasons now. So he was there prior to Xabi Alonso getting there. He was already in the building, and he had already got a fair bit of first team football by the time Xabi Alonso arrived. So he was playing under Gerardo Seoane. But under Xabi Alonso, having won his place, he really has blossomed. And I think one of the reasons he's blossomed is that tactical flexibility that he has, because a lot of coaches are looking, and Mikel Arteta's no exception to this, he's looking for centre-backs who can operate in wide areas. And if you look at Hincapié, he is that hybrid of left-back and centre-back. And what we often see is that he'll tuck in, and he would allow Jeremy Frimpong to zoom forward on that right-hand side. He would also hold down that flank for Alex Grimaldo to maybe move into central midfield and invert. But he's no stranger to getting forward himself, and he can rampage down the left. He's not got the same panache as Grimaldo. He's not the same speed as Frimpong, but he's very effective going forward. So, yeah, just a really good all-round performer.
What would you say if he did have, every player has weaknesses, but what would you say are his weaknesses, Kev?
Yeah, I guess his work with the ball can improve a bit. It has come on, but I guess, as I say, he's not quite as adept as some technically. So maybe that could improve. He's worked really hard on ironing out the mistakes and not making so many rash challenges. So I don't think there are that many weaknesses. Truth be told, I think actually he's somebody that's really developed. So I'm sure Mikel Arteta would see areas where he could improve. But in terms of standout weaknesses, there's nothing that screams out to me. And that's why this, to me, seems like a really smart market opportunity that's presented itself. And Arsenal seem to be ready to try and exploit it.
The impact that treble winning team, probably the best team to watch play from a pure fun perspective as well. The fact that he is so young and he's been in that cauldron that Bundesliga presents as well, going for an invincible season, going for the treble. There were some really amazing players in that team, some still there, some not. How much of a role did he truly play, Kev? How you talked about him being integral, kind of becoming an Alonso player, but when you look at the way they played, how integral was he to the success?
Second half of the season, a lot. As I say, it took him a while to absolutely nail down the spot, and he was injured for a part of that season. But once he did have a spot, he was used a lot. And it's not just in the Bundesliga he's played. He's got a season of Champions League under his belt as well last season. Mm-hmm. So, and they did very well. They qualified for the knockout phase. They ended up getting knocked out by Bayern in the last 16, and that was a bit of a disaster for them. But yeah, an important part. So not an ever-present because of the injury situation and because, again, he had to take a while to nail down that spot. But once he had, very, very important.
So, Kev, when you look at Arsenal's team and that position, we have a few injury-prone players, and definitely, Miles Lewis-Skelly was able to assert himself in the side last season. Injuries to Zinchenko kind of out of favour as well. Calafiori. I think that Arteta's looking maybe to not burn out Miles Lewis-Skelly, not have him play every single game, adjusting our left side so it's as impactful and creative as our right side. He definitely seems to have the ability to overlap maybe better or more than Miles Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori. What's your take on when he comes to the Arsenal? Does he dislodge these two players? We've seen a scenario where maybe Timber will play there if Benjamin White is fit. Maybe that's Mikel's preferred four. But how do you see it playing out for him at the club?
Well, look, Hincapié is not going there to not play. I imagine he'll have been given certain assurances that he can at very least compete for a regular first-team spot. Obviously, in the centre-back role, that's difficult because you've got Saliba and Gabriel, who are probably the best centre-back partnership in the world right now. So that's going to be difficult to dislodge one of them, but he will create cover and competition in that position. And I think he'll have his eye on Calafiori and he will think that he can absolutely play in that left-back role. I've spoken to quite a few people about Lewis-Skelly in the game, and a lot of people tell me they feel that his future is in midfield. And that's where he's going to end up being. And so that's actually going to be the way that he will go in the long run. And that would open up that slot for Calafiori and Hincapié to battle away on that left-hand side. And either of those players can cover the centre-back position. They've brought Mosquera in to learn and eventually compete. So I understand why fans would look at it and think, why do they need another defender? But I actually think in this situation, if you feel you've got the finance to do it, there aren't many market opportunities that come up like this. And I feel at that price point, he's absolutely worth going for.
Yeah, I agree. And I would disagree with fans that say we don't need another defender, especially if Kivior is going to end up going to Porto. And do you think that, and I agree, Miles Lewis-Skelly, of course, his career started off as a midfielder, Kev, and, default to the left back role, playing on the left there, he's been amazing, but he's also been amazing when he's been asked to play in midfield, that Man City game in particular. Is Hincapié a better player, in your opinion, than Calafiori, who ultimately he'll be battling for that place for? Miles Lewis-Skelly, I'll park for a second. He's a lot younger, but well, maybe. Is he better than either of those?
I'm biased, so I'm always going to say that he's better than Calafiori, whereas Italian journalists that I know would put it the other way and say Calafiori was the better player. They interpret it in different ways. Obviously, what we saw with Calafiori for Bologna, and to an extent for Italy as well, was those incredible runs into midfield and those incredible kind of surges from that position. Hincapié, I think, plays a lot wider. He's not going to do that necessarily. He's not going to make those surges in midfield, but he can go up and down that flank if you want him to. So I think they are both very, very good players who interpret the position in a different way.
Yeah, sounds like we'll be getting a really special player and another player that really wants to join the Arsenal. Just real quick, we talk about on the field and of course, you know, the player attributes and their strengths and their weaknesses. What about personality? What kind of guy are the Arsenal getting here? You know how important culture is to Mikel.
Yeah, I don't see that being a problem. He's passionate. He's a competitor. He was in tears actually after the game against Hoffenheim at the weekend, because it was clear that he felt he was going to move on, and he played his last game for the club. So he really felt it. It was interesting that when a lot of players did leave and were being linked with moves away, he actually signed a new contract, not in the summer just gone, but before then. And so he's not been angling for a move for a long, long time. I think he has looked around and thought, right, this is probably the time, because a lot of players have left. And they are starting something new, and he could have gone to the Premier League before this summer. He's had opportunities to do that, but he wanted to make his mark in Germany, and he's absolutely done that.
And you've told us many times on this show how you feel Arsenal Football Club are the best team off the ball in Europe. You said that way before anyone else was saying it, as we headed into the semi-final of the Champions League. Off the ball, what kind of player is Hincapié?
Oh, he's a killer. I mean, he's really physical, really aggressive. He absolutely won't shirk the challenge physically. So he'll fit right in, because it's a tough old set, that. So I don't think he's going to be out of whack with the rest of them, put it that way.
And another fella that we talked about who's kind of pulling this all together, a lot of Arsenal fans had the question about who's going to have the power at the club. Will it be Andrea Berta? Will it be Mikel Arteta? It seems like they are developing a bit of a power duo role. When you hear about Eze, phoning Mikel before the Tottenham deal, when you hear about, Berta and the approach, and of course his pedigree in the marketplace, did such a phenomenal job at Atletico. What's your take on Berta's impact? And do you think all of the moves that he's made this summer make Arsenal contenders? And do you sit at the table of folks that say there's no excuses for Mikel Arteta now with all the Arsenal he has in his toolbox?
There's certainly no excuse not to compete now, because they were very close, a couple of seasons ago, and the season before that, actually. Last season was disappointing, the way it dribbled away, but of course a lot of that was down to injury problems, and I think that's what Berta has tried to address. He's tried to strengthen areas of the pitch that needed strengthening. There's strength in depth in every single position. And so, yeah, there are no excuses now. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to win the league or he's gone. What it means is you have to compete. And if they're 15 points behind at the end of the season, that probably isn't acceptable, because he has been given the tools. He has been given the opportunity to compete on multiple fronts. I think Madueke is a great signing. I think that gives them alternatives in wide areas. It takes the pressure off Saka. I think Eze is a great signing as well. I think that gives them a bit of unpredictability through the middle. And again, probably takes a little bit of the heat off Odegaard to a certain extent. I know they're different players in the way that they interpret it, but that creativity from that attacking midfield area is really, really important. So, yeah, no excuses. I do think they will compete. I think they'll be right up there. I think they've all got flaws, Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City, Chelsea, but I think it's going to be a great race.
Yeah, I think so too. I'll get you out on this one outside of Arsenal, a little inside Arsenal. We've spoken a lot. You came on and we had a great show with you, with GoonerChris, and you told everyone, just how much you value him and how brilliant you think he is. I know you're a huge fan of Wirtz. We had the Sesko versus GoonerChris conversation. What have you seen so far, Kev? And it's only 2 games in. Some people already writing Wirtz off. They were writing GoonerChris. They were writing GoonerChris off after the first game. Sesko now getting a little bit of heat from Gary Neville et al. What's your take on these 3?
I think it's nonsensical to write off Sesko. He's barely seen the ball. He's come on a sub twice. They've not created a single chance for him, really. So I think that's nonsensical. GoonerChris has developed already, in the sense that it was tough for him in the first game against Manchester United, but they won it anyway. And then against Leeds, we saw much more of him, and we saw him running those channels. The first goal he scores is classic GoonerChris, runs the channel, takes on the defender, beats the defender and scores. We see that time and time again if you look at his history with Sporting. And Wirtz, again, it will come. It's a physical league. It's a quick league. It takes a while. You don't get the same amount of space in the Bundesliga. It's not to say the Bundesliga is an easy league. It's just a different league. That's going to come. So, yeah, anybody writing players off at this stage, I would suggest needs to do something else, because it's a little bit reactionary for my liking. It's just not necessary. I think 20 games in, 25 games in, come back to me. But I just think it takes players different amounts of time to develop and learn.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Super Kevin Hatchard, thank you so much for popping in. We really appreciate you. If you're not following Kevin yet, you make sure you do so at Kevin Hatchard. Brilliant stuff. Thanks so much. And we look forward to talking to you throughout the season. It's going to be a little outrageous, I think, this season, Kev.
I think it's going to be a good one. See you soon.
See you soon at Squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.